Okay, yes, I know I am passionate about a lot of things, but I especially have no chill about a new Ryan Coogler movie. I think he's one of the most exciting directors who are working right now, and he's back with a new movie. It's called Sinners. You know the drill. The group chat's here. Let's go. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion, and you know what? We have no time to waste. We don't have the time, so let's just get straight to the trailer of Sinners. Here it is.
I ain't ever seen no demons, no ghosts, no magic. Till now.
That is from the trailer of Sinners. It is a horror film from Ryan Coogler. It follows twins Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan. They return home to rural Mississippi to open a nightclub. It's the hottest party in town, and then the party goes a little south because a trio of vampires show up, which does tend to ruin parties, if you ask me. Ryan Coogler is the director of this movie. Ryan's young, man. He's 38 years old, but he's got dedicated fans because he's made some brilliant works in his career so far. He's made Fruitvale Station, he's made Creed, he's made both Black Panther movies. Joining me in the group chat today to talk about Sinners, Kathleen Newman-Bremang is here, Jackson Weaver is here, Rollie Pemberton is here. What's up, y'all? How you doing?
Oh, I'm so good.
Hi,
So ready
Elamin.
to talk.
How's it going?
That was like a tame hello. I meant to be like, what up,
Hello.
Black people? You know, but I'm not.
Oh.
It is that. That is, in fact, the thing we're doing. Okay, Kathleen, maybe you'll start talking about Ryan Coogler, I think, because I think that's a good
Sure.
context here. Like, people are excited about him, and by people, I mean me, but also I think people. I think there's like a Ryan Coogler hive out there, you know?
Absolutely.
There's
Gang.
a lot of anticipation about this movie. Why? What makes Ryan Coogler an exciting director?
I mean, he had one of the most stunning directorial debuts that I have ever seen with Fruitvale Station, which was based on the real life police shooting of Oscar Grant. He went on to do Creed, which is one of my favorite movies of the last decade. My dog's name is Apollo Creed because of that movie. And then, of course, he did Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, two of the best Marvel movies ever made.
Yeah.
So Sinners is highly anticipated because Ryan Coogler has proven he is a great director over and over and over again. But also, this is the first time the restraints are off. You know, he's not tied by existing IP or by a true story. He just gets to play and create and be original with Sinners. And he chose to make a Southern Gothic horror musical, romance, period, drama, epic. Like, it's truly an original story. It's ambitious. It's a big swing. And I think, you know, when any young director gets to have creative control like this, it's really exciting.
Yeah, when I heard that his next movie is going to be a horror film, I was like, Ryan, what are we doing here? And then I walked out, I was like, oh no, I see that it was all leading up to this. Before I get to Rollie and before I get to Jackson, Kathleen, this movie stars your husband, Michael B. Jordan.
Thank you. My future second ex-husband. Yes, correct. Thank you.
And he plays both leading men, which is, I think that's the right amount of Michael B. Jordans that you need in the world.
My dream.
But also, can I just say, the idea of Ryan Coogler teaming up with Michael B. Jordan, he keeps going back to this well, right? Like Fruitvale Station, he's Creed in Creed. He is the center of the first Black Panther movie. Killmonger was right, you know? And then like he pops up again in the second, Black Panther. What do you think it is about this partnership? The idea that Ryan Coogler is like, no, Michael B. Jordan, he's my guy.
I mean, well, first of all, he's my guy, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, they're like De Niro and Scorsese, right? Or DiCaprio and Scorsese, and Spike Lee, Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
You know, they're the actor-director muse-auteur relationship. It's a long-standing one in Hollywood, and this is just another great one. And I think, you know, to hear Ryan and Michael explain it in interviews, they say that they grew up together in this business, and they're two, you know, young Black men with similar backgrounds. I think we've seen so many promising young Black actors and directors have one big role or one big movie and then kind of fade into the background. And these two have created opportunities for each other. And I think there's a trust that comes with sharing a culture and having so much history together. And when we interviewed Wunmi Musaka, who plays Annie in this movie, she put it like that. She said, they really see each other. There's no doubt. There's no worry. There's just utter trust and harmony. And I really thought that was a beautiful way to put it.
You see that in almost every shot of the movie, which is a lot of Michael B. Jordan because, again, he's playing two people here. There's so much I want to get to, but I feel like, Rollie, we got to just set up the story a little bit more. I mentioned that Sinners is sort of set in Jim Crow era. Michael B. Jordan's characters, they're both returning to rural Mississippi, but they've had a few misadventures, shall we say, with Al Capone in Chicago. Then they want to open this nightclub. Rollie, tell us about Smoke and Stack. What's their deal? What are they trying to accomplish with this nightclub?
Yeah, so they're these two kind of towering figures. They're equally respected and feared.
Yeah.
And basically, they come back home to Mississippi to try and start a juke joint that is, quote, for us and by us.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a club where their community can celebrate their own culture.
The forest and bias just keeps returning as a theme through the whole movie in the most beautiful and then haunting ways. The booze is flowing, Jackson, everybody's partying. Then you get a group of vampires to show up. Before we get to what the vampires are supposed to represent, which of course we've got a lot to say about that, tell me about that turn for you in the movie, because you're suddenly watching a period piece and you're like, oh, no, sorry, it is now a vampire movie.
Yeah, is this like a crime movie? Is this a horror movie? Is this like a musical? I'm going to say yes to all of those. And I love every single genre of them.
Yes.
And I love the turn. And I think that like this movie, I don't know necessarily because I'm like, outside of, I'm not a normal person, I'm an entertainment reporter or whatever, but it does feel like this movie is like maybe one of the first of the year that's actually engendering excitement. And I think it's because of this turn, of this kind of like self-serious, not trying to like, go tongue in cheek, but like commitment to the bit. And I really think that the turn works. And there are things that I wish that were dug into more, and I maybe wish that there was like another turn or something. But the actual like very almost unsettling meta commentary that this movie kind of deals with when it gets to know this is a monster movie and this is a commentary on like modern race relations. It really, really works. It's like, if you're like read or seen From Hell, you randomly are like doing the story about Jack the Ripper, and then out of nowhere towards the end, you are in like 21st century office building, which is so unsettling. But you realize that there is a direct connection between what the story meant to people then, what it means to us now. And I'm kind of talking elliptically because I don't want to give away what it's saying and like what the turn is. But when you watch it, you'll get it. And I think it really works.
The turn that you're talking about is so satisfying that I was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to yell in a movie theater, but I really wanted to. So
I yelled.
We are trying to be like, how do you talk about a movie and not give away the movie, but also give away all the excitement you have about a movie? Okay, let's get into the meat of it, because Kathleen, Ryan Coogler is not the only black filmmaker to turn to horror to represent an allegory of racism, to represent an allegory of white supremacy. Casey Lemons comes to mind. Like, there's just so many black directors who've been like, you know what? That's the tool. The tool is to turn to this genre. Jordan Peele has been doing it so incredibly successfully. But vampires,
a lot of people have tried and failed.
That's true. A lot of people have attempted this thing, but I think it works here. Vampires are rarely, obviously, just vampires. They're metaphors for things like colonization, like plague, like trauma. What do you think the vampires are trying to represent in this movie?
I think it feels maybe a bit on the nose, right? That a vampire is going to represent, white supremacy and gentrification and appropriation. But that, to me, is what they are: blood-sucking vultures. And that is a very on the nose allegory. But I think it works because it is on the nose, and because racism so often is like really obvious in a way that's like, really, you're going to be this cliche right now? You're going to be racist? That's such a base level way of thinking. And so it makes sense that it's the easy, obvious allegory. I don't want to give too much away, but the way the vampires try to convince people to like join their cult is a very interesting, I think, commentary on modern racism and the ways in which Black folks contribute to the systemic harm of other Black folks.
I think we're trying to be sort of gentle about spoilers, but I do want to give some of the context of the movie away, which is to say that it's a lot about appropriation and appropriation of Black music and appropriation of art that is created by Black people. Rollie, we've talked on the show about the work of reclamation, the work of properly going back and archiving something that originated as Black and saying, no, that originated with black people, and like you will give the debt. You know, there is a debt that is owed. You know, there's a recognition that is owed, and we don't do enough of that recognition. And in doing that, you sort of snatch it back from the forces that are trying to like strip it for parts and then claim it for themselves. And Coogler kind of made that literal, I think, in the vampire sense, in the vampire metaphor. Do you get the sense that this work of reclamation, you know, when we talk about like Beyonce putting out an album like Cowboy Carter to be like, no, we belong here. This is ours. Do you get the sense that this work of reclamation is working right now?
Oh, I think it's working really well. I think the thing about this film is there are a lot of points where it could have gone left into cringe territory, but it's on the right side of it where it just feels really earnest and it's coming from the heart and it's soulful. I think it's not only his own personal experiences, his family experiences, but it's representative of an entire culture in a way that doesn't feel pedantic, that feels very elegantly crafted, in a way. Like I feel like for a so-called black film, like I haven't really seen anything with this level of sophistication in how he's translated a lot of these ideas. Like I think it's really very impressive what he's done here.
There's a shot, and like it's kind of, I think it will become the focal point of the conversation of this movie, which is a scene that is incredibly transformative. It's like it puts Sammy, who's the lead character in this movie, he's a blues musician, in conversation with black artists from different times. And I think I'm used to seeing that represented as like, oh, it invokes the past. But what Ryan Coogler does, and I think that's the thing you're trying to get at, is like, this could have been a bit cringy. He also, I think, invokes the future. He says all of black music, whether we're talking about, you know, someone like Jimi Hendrix on an electric guitar, or we're talking about the entirety of hip hop, or we're talking about all of the different dance culture that originated, they are all in conversation with the blues. They are all in conversation with this singular origin point. And when you do that, that scene worked for me, but I also do think there are people who will say that felt a little bit too jarring or unearned or out of place. Jackson, did that scene work for you?
I think it worked. And I think the music here is more the metaphor than the vampires are. And I think there's so many examples. And we talk about the blues, we talk about the black people singing their own songs. Yeah. But what really stood out to me was more when those songs were appropriated. The inimitable, nonpareil, amazing Jack O'Connell, who plays the main evil vampire, who I love and I'm obsessed with. He is the best. I mean, watch 71, watch This Is England, watch Startup, some of the best acting performances you'll ever see. But like he is
Jack O'Connell, Hive, rise up. Okay, all right. Let's go.
My gosh. Yeah. So we got to change. I got to move on, but I'll go on forever.
Come back to the scene. Come back to the shot. Yes.
He is a real guy, this real man. He is British and Irish. He has both those backgrounds. And in this movie, he's playing this like Irish vampire. And he talks on and on about kind of this British colonialism that's visited upon him. When he and these other KKK vampires first go up and try and get into this black club, they sing this song called Pick Poor Robin Clean, which they sing very bluegrass and sunshiny. But that actual song, if you listen to the lyrics, I can't repeat the lyrics because they have slurs in them, but they were traditionally sung by black blues singers making fun of themselves. I'm a N-word, don't cut no figure, and like making fun. There's this book called Songsters and Saints by Paul Oliver, and he talks about it. He says, the tune was often productive of laughter, even when we ourselves were its object. For each of us recognized that his fate was somehow our own. Our defeats and failures, even our final defeat by death, were loaded upon his back and given ironic significance and thus made more bearable. Because that song is about being poor, broke, and dying. They're going up and they're mocking these black people by taking their songs from them. Later on, they sing Will You Go, Ye Lassie Go, Wild Mountain Time, a song that's a more modern Irish folk song that's adapted by an older poem by Robert Tannehill. That song is, you know, around the time when the Troubles were really kicking off, when the Irish Beatles were murdered in Northern Ireland. And these are all talking about how colonialism can be visited upon people like this Irish man who then decide to sell their souls and visit that racism and colonialism and subjugation on other people, black people. And the music all throughout is making this commentary on how we can steal and we can, you know, go to the dark side, become vampires, and we can fight and we cannot really necessarily get rewarded for it. And I love that. I love how that gets woven into the movie.
So I gotta tell you this. Like, I was in my bed, laying in bed last night. I was like, Jackson is gonna just bring in the history of Celtic music into this conversation, and I already can't wait for that part. I mean, there is something about the sophistication here, Kathleen, that, like, to me, this is a movie that felt very novelistic, very sort of like a complete novel that just had all of these layers that kind of like unfold before you. And there's something really healing about watching the scene in the nightclub where Ryan Coogler says, this is just where Black people went for joy. This is where Black people went, and they were not policed by all the forces that were outside of the nightclub, whether it be religion being used against them, or police being used against them, or white supremacy being used against them. And there's something, like, to me, really transformative about watching that scene. I was telling Rollie after we left the screening, but, like, I found myself really tearing up during that stretch. Like, as you just kind of watch the blues be literally remixed into modern contemporary hip hop music, and you just get this wave of continuity that happens in that scene. So with all that said, I mean, like, clearly I have no chill about that scene or this movie, but was it jarring for you to watch that transformation happen?
No. I mean, I was also very emotional. Elamin and I are criers, so
Yeah,
I was
we're
also
criers.
crying.
Yeah, buddy.
And I think it really worked. I think that, you can't make an allegory about white supremacy and gentrification and appropriation without talking about music. And for everything Jackson just went through, which was just a very beautiful answer. Like, thank you, Jackson, for everything you do. But I think to connect it to hip hop and the continuation of the different ways in which whiteness exploits and pilfers and culturally, violently, purposefully, subtly, the scene was showing all of that. And we're already in a supernatural world, right? Like, why not go deeper and time travel a little? Like, it did really work for me. And I think it was because it was so joyful, and I think a lot of people are going to say maybe the build up, that climb in the first hour is a little too slow. But I think because it was slow, and because you then are in this moment of joy, and there's also the dread that comes with the joy, just knowing that it's about to get smashed, it made it even more powerful and even more emotional for me.
I'll tell you this: if you feel like that buildup was too slow, and you've ever watched one Marvel movie, you got to stop talking about movies. You're done with me. You hold no credibility over here, none whatsoever. If folks are just joining us, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Kathleen Newman-Bremang is here. Rollie Pemberton is here. Jackson Weaver's here, and we are talking without any chill whatsoever about this new movie, Sinners. It's a horror movie by Ryan Coogler. Rollie, listen, Coogler has this pull towards a really complicated morality. He likes these characters who maybe scan as villains, and yet you can't really fully read them that way, because they kind of carry very visibly this hurt and this anger, and it feels really not just earned, but also like fully fleshed out. That's why after the first Black Panther movie, Killmonger, actively the bad guy. You had people coming out being like, the hashtag was like, Killmonger was right, because it was like, oh, he was maybe the bad guy, but he kind of made some points here. He does that again in this movie. You see Black people who are justifying their alignment with the side that is meant to be evil. There's a character who I will not name who's like, man, you got no vision. And there's something about that device that is compelling to me. Do you think it works here?
I think it worked really well. I think it's amazing writing, because people in real life are complex like that, right? Like it's not like somebody's a good guy, somebody's a bad guy. And I think Coogler does an amazing job with that in this film. I feel like it's just amazing just watching him do his thing, and just from a writer's perspective, from particularly as a musician, watching this film and seeing the way that he plays with some of these kind of old blues tropes. Like, I see a lot of, Robert Johnson at the Crossroads in the Sammy character,
Yes.
Hellhound on My Trail, that kind of thing. I feel like he really gives these characters a lot of depth and complexity. And, you're talking to somebody who bought his son a Black Panther doll, and and it's the kind of thing where his films, Ryan Coogler, they're the kind of movies that whenever I watch his films, I feel like I wish I had this movie when I was a kid. It's the kind of thing that I dreamt of.
That's a really beautiful and meaningful way, I think, to put it, because, Jackson, if you'll follow me down this rabbit hole, as I was watching Sinners, as I came out of it, the first analogy that I thought of was not another filmmaker. It was, out of all people, Beyonce. And I say Beyonce because one, largely a conceptual artist, right? And we've talked about the ways that she sort of occupies different concepts and then executes them. But two, Ryan Coogler's genres so far have shifted so much, right? Like he's someone who did Fruitvale Station, much smaller, much more intimate movie. And then you get Creed, which is like, here's a very well-known IP. People know Rocky really well. And he's like, no, I think this is a vehicle to talk about Black masculinity. And then you get a movie like Black Panther, which again, like by all intents and purposes, the Marvel machine has a wild history of just kind of squishing people down into a separate kind of vision. And he's like, no, this is actually an opportunity to talk about what it would look like to have separate Black power. And then you get a movie like this one, which is using horror as an access point to talk largely about, hey, what does it look like when we own the origin points of our art and when we are dispossessed of those origin points of that art? And to me, like, that's the thing that Beyonce does. She sort of like gets into a different vehicle and says, no, this is going to be a larger vehicle to talk about a larger idea. Does that analogy hold any water for you? Like the idea that like Ryan Coogler being the Beyonce of filmmakers?
Beyonce filmmakers.
I can't believe I said that,
I think
but I'm
any filmmaker. No, you'd be honored. Any filmmaker should be honored to be called the Beyonce of filmmakers. And I think it makes sense. I mean, I think I would kind of put him in conversation with Kubrick because he's somebody, he did comedy, he did horror, he did sci-fi, he did drama, he did everything. And he just did it as like if every single movie he's ever made was a sci-fi or every single movie he's ever made was a comedy. Yeah. And he just conquered each genre one after the other. And I think that's something Coogler is doing. And he is doing it with, I think that like, I mean, I'm thinking about through it in my head right now, but I think the hypothesis lands that he's doing it with a through line, a message, an idea, an artistic statement that you can mine from his work. I think here it's very clear. Other films, you kind of maybe have to work, although I still think it's there, definitely in Fruitvale Station. But here, I mean, the message is kind of finding its home. I do think that this movie, it does straddle a line between how much it's trying to fit a story into a thematic statement, an idea, versus how much it's telling a cohesive story. My one critique for this would be that like some of its messages that it raises up are either too deep to really get at. Like, I mean, I love the whole, music as a metaphor for, visiting racism upon subsequent generations, but I do think you need to have a lot of knowledge going into the movie to make any of that make sense. And then also I think that like kind of like the arc of, showing, I don't want to say what it is, but that scene where everything kind of twists, and I wish it was, visited more and they go deeper into it. But all of that said, this message is clearly there if you work for it. And I do think this kind of does make him, as Elamin is the first to say, the Beyonce of filmmakers.
That's what I wanted. I wanted Jackson Weaver's validation of my thesis. That's everything I've ever wanted in my entire life. Look, Kathleen, I got maybe about a minute left here, but also we can't not talk about this movie as a romance because it is a romance. And Michael B. Jordan, your husband, what a stunning turn in just a couple of scenes where he turns the whole thing into a romance.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who doesn't typically love horror films, and so for anybody listening who's a romance girly like I am, I promise you this movie is worth it. And I think that any, good story has a good love story. And this one has a great one. Smoke's relationship with Annie, played by Wunmi Musaka, who I mentioned. It is the love story at the center of Sinners, and it's slow and it's sensual and it's rooted in history and heartbreak, like this gut-wrenching heartbreak. And it really grounds the film. And from their first scene in the shop, which is like very sexy, my, make Hollywood horny again agenda, it's working.
It's working.
It's working. Yeah. You're invested in them. Yeah. And I think it's a testament to MBJ's skill that he has insane chemistry with both Wunmi and Haley Steinfeld, who plays Mary. Yeah. And I'm sure he would have it with me if we ever met. But yeah, it's true. I can't stress enough how much this is also a romance. It is a horror, yes. There's all these other things, all these other genres that Jackson mentioned, but it is at its core a romance, and there is something for everyone.
I think the same way that Beyonce says, hey, here's a starting point of a conversation, go do your homework. I think Ryan Coogler is doing something that is similar to that in this movie. And I cannot stop talking about it, but I also out of time to continue talking about it, so we got to leave it there. But I just appreciate all of your time and your insight. You guys have been terrific. Thank you again so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Newman-Bremang is the Deputy Director of Refinery 29 Unbothered. She's in Newfoundland. Jackson Weaver is a senior writer at CBC Entertainment in Toronto. And Rollie Pemberton is author, music critic, and rapper known as Cadence Weapon. He's in Hamilton. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. We are gonna be back next week. I would love to see you then.